Welcome to today's episode of Sacred Paths, where we explore the intersection of morality, duty, and the hidden secrets of the human heart. I'm your host, Clara, and today we're diving into the fascinating world of Freemasonry, specifically the insightful themes contained within the 32nd degree ritual, titled The Royal Secret: Love, Duty, and the Weight of a Knight's Conscience. And I'm joined by our resident Freemasonry expert, Robert. Welcome, Robert.
Thanks, Clara. I'm excited to unravel the layers of this rich tradition and engage with our listeners about the profound insights it offers.
Great. So, to kick things off, can you briefly explain what the 32nd degree is and why it's significant in Freemasonry?
Absolutely. The 32nd degree, known as the Sublime Prince of the Royal Secret, is one of the higher degrees in the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry. It emphasizes moral and ethical responsibility, transforming a lot of its associated mythology around secrecy into a focus on community, service, and the transformative power of love. It's a journey that illustrates how we can express love through costly service to others, blending philosophical teachings with practical applications.
That's fascinating. So, what's the central theme that emerges from the 32nd degree?
At its core, the central theme challenges the perception of power. It asserts that true power doesn't arise from domination or control, but rather from moral responsibility. The essence of the royal secret is that love expressed through service is the key to personal and communal fulfillment. The character of Constans serves as a lens for this exploration.
Constans, indeed. Let's frame him a bit more for our audience. Who is he, and what is his role in the narrative?
Constans is a knight in the Masonic ritual who undergoes a series of temptations that reflect universal human challenges: pleasure, power, self-interest, and spiritual escape. His journey symbolizes the moral dilemmas that each of us faces, especially regarding our choices and the weight of our commitments.
And I think that's a relatable theme for our listeners, isn't it? We all make choices every day that reflect our values, or sometimes expose the gaps in them.
Exactly. Let's break down Constans' temptations one by one to see how they resonate with our lives today. First up, we have the temptation of pleasure.
Right? So in the story, he's confronted by Florio, who invites him to abandon his vigil for music, wine, and romance, all tempting distractions that promise instant gratification. But Constans refuses, echoing the notion that true commitment often pulls us away from fleeting pleasures.
And that's really striking. It's not an anti-joy stance, but rather an anti-betrayal perspective. Pleasure becomes problematic when it leads us to neglect our responsibilities.
I love that perspective. Now, moving on to the second temptation, power and knowledge, introduced by Urban. Can you explain that dynamic?
Urban represents the allure of knowledge and power, a common temptation to seek dominance over others under the guise of wisdom. Constans counters this by grounding himself in the idea of service, emphasizing that true power comes from humility and stewardship, not subjugation.
This criticism of technocratic arrogance really resonates today. We often see intellectualism devoid of service, don't we?
Absolutely, Clara. And this temptation opens us up to the question of how we wield our knowledge. Are we using it for the benefit of others, or are we hoarding it for personal gain?
So true. Now let's talk about the temptation of self-interest, represented by Rufus. How does that unfold?
In this segment, Constans faces a physical threat. His castle is under attack, presenting a plausible excuse to abandon his post. But Constans clings to his duty, embodying trust in a higher purpose rather than succumbing to panic and selfish instinct.
That challenges us to consider how far we're willing to go to protect our commitments when our comforts are at risk. It encourages thoughtful reflection on duty versus personal desire.
Indeed. Then we have the temptation of religious escape, represented by Ignatius. This is also a fascinating dynamic, as the character attempts to draw Constans into a retreat from worldly troubles, suggesting isolation as safety.
And what a powerful counterpoint Constans provides. He rejects the idea that salvation can be found in isolation and insists on using his God-given faculties for the betterment of others. In doing so, he challenges a significant aspect of spiritual thinking that prioritizes personal salvation over public responsibility.
That strikes at the heart of many modern spiritual methods, doesn't it? This sense of retreating into safety at the expense of those we might serve.
Now, Let's pivot to the crisis moment in the narrative, when Constans must choose between fidelity to his vow and the duty to protect his people. Describe that moment for our listeners.
This is where Constans is thrust into genuine anguish. The alarm sounds, and he grapples with whether staying true to his vigil means allowing innocent lives to be lost. It reflects the deep moral conflict between adherence to rules and a sense of protecting the vulnerable.
This is a pivotal revelation, isn't it? He ultimately decides to break the letter of the law to uphold the spirit of his higher duty. How does he express that choice?
With proclamation, he cries, "My hope is in God," reinforcing his commitment to service over blind compliance, which highlights the very essence of love, duty, and the weight of conscience.
And that leads us seamlessly into the reveal, the meaning behind the royal secret.
That's right. After an intense and transformative battle, Constans' sacrifice leads to a collective celebration, but he still faces the consequences of his actions. When brought before the Prince Commander, the narrative challenges the judgment passed earlier, constellating that Constans was dishonored for abandoning his post, despite being the true hero through his selfless sacrifice.
Isn't that telling? It underscores that authentic knightly duty is expressed through selfless service. How can we translate these themes into our everyday lives?
Exactly. It compels listeners to reflect. Where are we being invited to keep vigil in our lives? And which temptations are the loudest for us right now? Is it the lure of entertainment, the promise of influence, or perhaps the comfort we find in retreating to our safe spaces?
What a powerful call to action. Before we conclude, let's invite our listeners to take a small, specific action toward embodying these ideals.
Yes, think of someone who needs your voice, perhaps someone being unfairly criticized, and stand up for them. Take that step, however small it may be, to align with your deepest values amidst the chaos.
As we wrap up, let's reinforce the degree's claim. The real royal secret is revealed not just in the knowledge we hold, but in how fiercely we love and act, particularly when it's challenging. Thank you for joining us today, and remember to keep the spirit of service alive.
Thank you, Clara, and thank you, listeners. Until next time, may we all choose courage over comfort and love over self-interest.